time dilation is one of the inherent qualities in relativity, that where you have gravitation, there's a warp in time that your time relative to a frame of reference, to another place where you have less of a gravitational attraction or less mass, that the time is going to be moving more slowly. Well, that seems like the basis for some sort of time management, that you could use gravity to manage time by way of time dilation, where you had more gravity and where others had less gravity, your time would be moving more slowly relative to them. And so I decided that I would try to market this. And I did so by creating time ingots. It seemed logical enough. I founded a company called Space-Time Industries, and the time ingots were, as you can see, well, they were bars of lead that I bought on eBay. And I packaged them, though. And the thing about this technology is that you could very conveniently put one of these on your desk, and you would have, as your frame of reference, ever so slight an advantage over the person in the next cubicle. So, granted, we're talking about a very, very small advantage, but then I realized that there were many other ways in which to use this sort of advantage that came courtesy of gravity and of Mr. Einstein. Namely, you could have what I came to call the time warp undershirt. A time warp undershirt puts greater density, more mass around your heart relative to the rest of your body, especially your brain. And as a result, you end up with this very slight advantage of living just that little bit longer relative to how long you think you're living, or you get to think a little bit faster relative to how long you're living. I will grant you that this is a minimal effect. We're talking about perhaps a billionth of a billionth of, maybe a billionth of a second over the course of the entire length of time that the universe has been here. So you really need, in order to be able to feel this and to take advantage of this in a serious way, you need a neutron star. So that's what I came up with as a way to move forward in this technology. Namely, I came up with a sort of an architecture that can be built on neutron stars, what I called an elevator house. And the concept of the elevator house was basically that every room was on a shaft, and you could arrange your life by the way that you arrange the rooms on these different shafts so as to be able to fully manage your time. And of course, up on the roof is the garden where plants are growing relatively quickly compared to your life, and you're able, therefore, to have strawberries, as many as you want, whenever you want them. But this is all still sort of selfish and still sort of not fully managing time to the full potential, I don't believe. I think that where it gets interesting is where it gets communal. That is to say, not to manage time just for yourself, but what if an entire community had time management in this relativistic way? Well, I decided to design some cities. I decided to go into urban planning. Why not? I'm an experimental philosopher, after all. And so what I did was I designed a few cities. Now, for my cities, what I did was I used the equivalence of velocity to mass because it was easier. At least it was easier to make some blueprints. And so I ended up with cities like this. The cities have different districts that are spinning very, very fast, but at different rates relative to each other. Those of you who know clock making are able probably to figure out that what's going on right here is that the residential district is spinning at a rate that is going to give you a relatively long lifespan compared to, those are trees, that's the agricultural district on the other side, so you get to eat well. And in the middle is the industrial district, which frankly we do need our iPhones and other plastic things, but not too many of them, so it seemed like it really belonged in the middle. And so I then went ahead and I came up with some other cities that could also be built along these lines and submitted these out into the world, totally open source for any government that wished to take it on and to build one of these. Nobody's done it yet, I have to tell you, but it is also interesting to me that it got quite a lot of attention, that for instance, Architizer, one of the architectural trade publications, wrote it up. And not only them, but also the Wall Street Journal. And this is interesting to me. I mean, not only is it an excuse for me to boast, it also is interesting from the standpoint of what I was talking about earlier, namely how to do philosophy in public in a way that engages people in a broad conversation where what it's about kind of comes out of the conversation itself. And so that you end up with, in the case of a project like this, all sorts of things falling out of it, all sorts of ideas that I certainly didn't have going into it, and I probably ended up stealing from other people as I was having conversations with them. But really, in terms of how we think about time in our society and the way in which the arrangement of time and the understanding of time in communal terms fundamentally changes time as experienced, and how society can be built in ways perhaps not using quite the same amount of elaborate clockwork as I've done, but in ways that might be truer to the relationship that we have through time.